Hello everyone. We are going to understand what is Infogroup and actions. So we will understand what is Infogroup, what is personal action, which is nothing but the transaction code PA40, and what is action menu, which is nothing but the list of actions which you see under the PA40 transaction code. And the last one is what is info type menu. What is info type menu is nothing but the number of tabs which you see in the PA30 transaction. So let us go one by one. First, let's understand what is info group. An info group is a sequence of info types, meaning group of info types, which is called info group, meaning group of info types. So an info group is a sequence of info type. It is a sequence. Sequence means one after the other. So an info group is a sequence of info types which are executed one after the other when an action is run for an employee through the transaction code PA40. So this is info group. Info group can be created for hiring purpose, for termination purpose, for any purpose which is related to an action. So whenever I say personal action like hiring, basically info group is the backbone which is driving that personal action. So before we create any action, we have to create info group, because info group contains that sequence of info types which has to come one after the other. Why do we need info group? Think of an example. When you hire an employee into the company, you want that employee to be set up into the system, and then you will basically enter his relevant information like when was he, the date of hiring, what is his personal details, what is the address information, what is the employee's bank details, and all this stuff. So you will need all those info types. So that is the reason why we have to define an info group, which is nothing but the sequence of info types which comes one after the other, so that the end user or the user who is setting that employee in the system can maintain that information. These info groups can be defined so that they are dependent on the user group. Don't get confused with info group and user group. User group is nothing but a group of users who have been given the similar permission. So I am belonging to a user group like X, and you are belonging to a user group called Y. So might be you are permitted for the info group called termination, I am permitted for the info group called hiring. So if I am trying to perform an action which is relevant to the termination, then I cannot perform because that info group is assigned to your user group. So this is very important, and in the big organizations this user group is really important. So hope you understood what is info group and what is user group. Info group is a sequence of info types, and user group is basically users belonging to that particular user group. So when I basically show you the practically how to create info group, it will be more easy for you to understand. Right now, since this is theory part, so you might be assuming what I'm talking about, but just pay attention to what I'm telling, so that when I do the practical, it will be more clear to you. Okay. So what is info group? Now these are the steps to configure the info group. This is the configuration basically, which I will show you on the SAP system. So this is the navigation, like you go to this personal administration and then you go all the way down till you find the define info groups. So when you click on that clock, so these are the activities it will ask you to perform so that you can define the info group. When you define an info group, for example, I was talking about hiring. This is the screenshot which shows you info group which has been created for hiring purpose. So this hiring has a sequence of info types, so many sequence of info types is coming. And also you must have been noticing here that this is dependent on the user group, meaning these particular users. If you see user group, yes, user group here, which user group? 01. All the users who belong to this user group 01 are able to access or are able to execute this info group. So if you are not belonging to this user group called 01, you will not be able to perform any hiring relevant action or in this info group, in other words, because you are not permitted. So all those users who are listed in this particular user group, only they will be able to execute this info group. If I remove this checkbox here, then it is independent, anybody can use this info group. But since this checkbox is activated, it means whichever user group are defined here, only those users who belongs to this user group will be able to process this info group or will be able to execute this info group. That's the only simplest way I would say. Like, this checkbox means these user groups are only permitted. If I remove this checkbox, any user, even though he is not listed in this user group, will be able to execute or can basically perform the any action, I would say, which is relevant to hiring. So this is very important to understand the info group purpose and the user group dependency. Now the second thing is the personal action. So now you understood what is info group, what is user group. It's very simple, right? Info group was different, user group is different. Info group was a sequence of info types. Now after you create info group, what is the purpose of it? Like you already said the system, you told the system, okay, this is the sequence of info types for this info group. But what are you doing with that info group? Nothing, right? Because you're not assigning that info group anywhere. That is the reason why we have to create a personal action and then attach that info group to an action, because that info group is the backbone for the action. So I would say info group is behind the screen. So nobody will see info group on the screen. It is behind the screen who does the job, and all the credits goes to personal action type. Everyone will see, oh, this is action. Oh, it is basically showing the info types one after the other. No, action is not showing. It is basically the info group which is driving the action. So that is the reason why we create an action. So it says once the info group is created, it can be assigned to the personal action, which can then be executed for an employee through the transaction code PF40, which is nothing but personal actions. And this is the navigation path to create your personal actions, and this is the screenshot. So when you go and configure the personal actions, like if I go back, so when you click on this particular IMG node, when you click on this clock, it will basically show you this screen. In this screen you will set up your personal action. The action can be anything. It could be hiring action, it could be termination, it could be promotion. Any action is an action, like which is basically relevant to an employee. So when you create an action, these are the 4 important things you have to make sure that you are entering the values properly. The first one is the name of the action. You have to give the name of the action and the number. The second one is the functional character, which is nothing but there are some values which SAP has given. So in this case, the number 1 means initial hiring. Yes, when you're hiring a person first time in the system, it's the initial hiring. So since it's an initial hiring, you will enter the number 1 here. Then the third column is an employment status. SAP has given a number called 3 if the employee is active. It makes sense because when you're hiring an employee, he is going to be an active employee in the company. So that's the reason why you have to enter the value 3. And there are some check boxes here. What is the purpose of this checkbox? I'll tell you when I do practically. And then after this, the most important thing here is this column IG. What is IG? Info group. If I don't assign this info group number here, this action doesn't have any meaning because it's just created. What will it do? Nothing. Even if you go to PA40, even if you select this action, it will do nothing, because this action doesn't know what info types to call, because those info types are stored in the info group, and if you do not attach this info group to the action, this action doesn't have any existence in the system. I would say there is no meaning of it. So you have to assign the info group. So now this is personal action. When I always tell personal action, keep in mind it is PA40 transaction code. Okay, PA40. Now I have completed info group, I have completed action. What is action menu? Action menu, let us give an example. You go to a restaurant, you order for some like dish, you say okay, give me a menu. So in the restaurant, the waiter will give you a menu, and then in that menu you will see there are vegetarian, non-vegetarian and other dishes. So that is a menu. Menu is the list of the categorization of the items, right? So here action menu is the list of actions. You see here all these are actions, and this becomes the menu, because if a user have to go to this particular transaction code, he will see what are the actions he is permitted to. So that becomes the action menu for that particular user. Now the most important thing here also is action menu is also dependent, can be dependent on the user group. What does this mean? It means the same way how I defined the info group, meaning that you are belonging to a particular user group who will take care of the termination. So when you go to the transaction code PA40, you might be only seeing a termination action. You might not be able to see hiring action, because this action menu has been designed for your user group separately than my user group. And for my user group, if I am responsible for hiring a person, rehiring a person, some other actions, then those actions will be under my menu. Even though you are also using the transaction code PA40, I am also using the same transaction code PA40. The only difference is that you will only see those actions which are only permitted to you, and I will see those actions which are permitted to me. So this is action menu dependent on the user group. I hope it's becoming very clear. So what is the purpose of the user group? This is very important. User group plays a very important role in a big companies, like if there are so many users and each user group has a different responsibility. So that's where we basically have to decide like which user group is assigned which particular menu. Similarly, action menu is the list of actions. Now similarly to action menu, we have info type menu. When I talk about info type menu, keep in mind it is PA30, PA30. So what is info type menu? Info type menu is these tabs. If you see this small tabs, basic personal data, if you see here, this payroll is one of the tab, benefits is one of the tab. These are the different tabs. Now again, the most important question here is like, will all the users be able to see all the tabs? No, this is also dependent on the user group. For example, one of the user is only responsible to maintain the personal data, then he will not be able to see the payroll relevant tabs, because payroll is sensitive and you want to give access to this particular payroll tab to only the users who run the payroll. So even though everyone will have the transaction code PA30, but you belong to like a particular user group who will basically enter the basic information, then you will only see the basic personal data tab. Whereas the users or the user group which is responsible for payroll, they will be seeing the payroll. They will be seeing the payroll tab. So in other words, I would say these menus and the info group are dependent, can be dependent on the user. I'll always say can be, not always, because in some companies they don't want to restrict based on the user group. They might say okay fine, everyone has an access. So it's not mandatory that every time you have to make it compulsory that menus should be dependent on the user group. It's not compulsory, but it's very recommended from SAP, like you use a user group just so that the sensitive data is basically not accessible by anyone. So you don't want to give the access to everyone. So that is the reason why user group plays very important role here. Okay. So now let's go back to the configuration of the info group. So you will be basically seeing in detail. Let me close the SAP here. Okay, just a second here. Okay. So okay, just a second. Let me, something is gone wrong here. Okay, let me log into my user ID and then I enter my password here. So you know the transaction code to go to the configuration, which is SPRO. I click on this IMG here and then I go to personal management here. Before I even go and configure the info group, let us see what user I belong, what is the user group I belong to. If you go to system, user profile, own data, it will show my details because I am a user, because I logged in with my user ID, so it is my profile. So when I click on own data, so it shows me my user here, and when you go to the parameters, it is showing you the UGR is the user group. I gave a number called 86. So this number is not fixed by SAP. User group number, any number you can give, but this number is very important. Giving a number is fine, but that number holds very important meaning. So this is UGR, which is nothing but the number 86 used for the user group. So I am belonging to this user group. So my user is user 12, basically myself, and I am belonging to the user group called 86. Similarly, there will be so many other parameters like MOL. These parameter IDs are defined by SAP. You cannot write something here, but the values are permitted to you so that you can enter any value here. Now this MOL is nothing but the parameter ID for country grouping. So this number 10 is for USA. Why I kept here? Because I am working on the configuration for the USA company codes and country. So that is the reason why I kept number 10. This number 10 is fixed. So SAP has given some numbers like fixed and some numbers is your choice. But for country grouping, SAP has given this numbers fixed. Like 10 is for USA, 40 is for India, 07 is for Canada, and so on. But for user group, it's your choice. Whatever the number you want to give, you can give. So I have given number 86. So I hope now you understood what is user group and user belonging to this user group. So I am belonging to this user group. Okay. Now let us configure the info group. So you know the navigation. I went to personal management. Now I'm going to personal administration here. Then I'm going to customizing procedures here. And then I have to go here actions. If you see actions here, you have to expand this particular IMG. So now you know the navigation is started from personal management to personal administration, all the way down to customizing procedures, and then to actions. In this actions, you will see here define info group. Click on this clock. When you click, this screen will come up. What it is telling? User group dependency on menus and info groups. So you click on this first node here, this screen will come up. Okay, so now go and click new entries. It is telling you, okay, what info group you want to create. So I am telling, okay, fine, Z, for my company I would say Z senior. So I would say not Z senior or something like Z T, and I would say this is Zenith hiring USA, something like that. Okay, so now this is just the name of the info group. I haven't created the info group with the sequence of info type, because you first have to give the name of the info group. So the system is asking you to give a name of the info group. So what I have given, ZT, and the text I have given as Zenith hiring USA, and this is user dependency. If I check box this particular box, it means like this info group is dependent for the user group, means not all users will be able to access this info group. And this is the reference user group. What is reference user group? Think like some users might not be included in a user group. In that case, you can use the reference user group for those users. So like example, your friend is another user and he doesn't have a user group, then the system will allow him to use the reference user group. Now I have completed creating, I would say, a user group dependency for this info group. I save it. Now I go back. So now your user group, I would say the info group, will be listed here. So if you basically see here, Zenith hiring USA, it is created here, ZT. Now go back. Now you have to create your info group. You just created the name of the info group there, but now you have to actually create the info group, meaning sequence of info types. If you remember in my definition, I told you info group is a sequence of info types. So now you have to click on this info group, give your info group name, which is nothing but ZT, or you can basically search from clicking this small box. So ZT is my info group. You enter ZT and hit enter. So this is the screen which comes up. Click on the new entries. So this info group you've already defined, but you have not defined the sequence of info types. Now you have to define the sequence of info types. Before defining the sequence of info types, you know that this particular info group, you made it as user group dependent, meaning this info group is only permitted for certain user group. Which user group? You have to list it down here. I showed you that my user is belonging to the user group 86. So I am entering my user group 86. And then this is the first sequential number. And since this is hiring is an action which basically creates the info types, so there are certain operations here. So delete, display, copy, but we always use INS. INS is insert, create. So I would say INS. The first info type which I want to show up when I hire a person is info type 0000. Hit enter, it will show you the name of the info type. Now again enter your user group, give another number and INS, and give the second info type. Hit enter, this is the second info type. Again go give your third info type which you want to show. Again go to the fourth 04 INS and then gives address. Hit enter, it will show you the text of the info type. Go to again the next sequence INS info type 7, hit enter. Go to again the same user group, the sequential number is 6, put INS, last info type. So now I want to end my sequence. So my info group definition is completed. Info group is nothing but sequence of info types which comes one after the other. And in my presentation slides, I told you that this info group will be assigned to the action which is coming in the next configuration. But at this point, just focus on what is info group and what is the sequence of info group means. So now you have created this info group for a user group, like I have created for my user group. What about the reference user group? You should always create also for the reference user group. Who knows, tomorrow some user might be joining the company and he is not assigned to the user group 86. In that case, he can use the reference user group. So I would just create a reference user group here for that particular group, and I would say basically I would give the same info types. I would give the sequence here, and let's see 006. So this is nothing but a, okay, let me give the number 5 here. Okay, 4 is already used. I am giving 5 INS 0007. The last one is 06, sorry, not here, 06 INS 0008. Okay, so now I have created the info group for my user group as well as for the reference user group. I hope you clearly understood what is info group means and what is user group. It's very easy, don't confuse with both the terms. User group is a group of users, info group is a sequence of info types, in my simple words. But when you checkbox this, then you have to make sure you have to enter the user group. If I remove this checkbox, it means not only this user group, but any person, any user can be able to execute this info group. So this checkbox is very important here if you want to restrict the permission of the info group to certain user groups. So let me save it. So my info group is, so info group is done. Good. But what is the purpose of the info group if you don't assign it to the action? Because when you go to PA40, you will see action, you will not see info group, right? If you go to the PA40, if I open another screen, if you go to PA40 here, you will see the actions, you are not seeing the info group. So when you complete your configuration of info group, you need to go and create an action. So let us create an action. I am clicking on setup personal actions, and then this screen comes up. I am clicking on action type, personal action types. I am clicking on that, this screen comes up. In my presentation slides, I explained you what are the different columns you need to configure. Click on new entries, give ZT something like Zenith new hire USA. I am creating new hire USA. What is functional character? Because this is the new hire, so it is initial hiring. So I am giving number 1. What is employment status? Employment status is number 3 for active. Since this is a new hire, I would enter 3 here. If you want to know what are the different other values which can be stored here, you can press F1 and it will show you under the employment status what are the different values. 0 means employee not with the company. So when you terminate an employee, you will put 0 here. But since this is a hiring, I am putting 3 because 3 is nothing but an employee active in a company. So you can put any number, but depending upon what action you are creating. And then after that, there are certain check boxes. What are these check boxes? The first one is the position, this is personal area, then employee group, then employee subgroup. If you basically tick mark these check boxes, what it will do is that basically if you go to this screen here, PA40, are you able to see this particular field columns enabled? the personal area is enabled, employee subgroup is enabled, employee subgroup is enabled. Why? Because whenever you basically tick mark this particular check boxes, then it will basically open those columns there, because it is easy, is the user friendly. User can directly enter certain values on the front end screen. Now your this checkboxes is done. The most important thing is this column. If you remember, I was telling you, just defining info group has no meaning. You have to basically create an action and then assign your info group to this action. Then only this action makes a meaning in the system, and this info group will derive this action. So when you see PF40, in this PF40 screen, this action doesn't have any meaning. The info group which is attached to this action, that holds the actual value in the system. So now what I have done, I have created an action. Now I am assigning my info group. So my info group was basically ZT, something like that, which we created. Yes, Zenith Hiring USA. So when I click on this, now I have assigned my info group to the particular action. Now what are these two checkboxes? It means, since we are hiring a person, if you basically remember my previous lecture, I told you the first action is the info type 0000. The first info type, mandatory info type, is 0000. What is this means? Like whenever you are running an action or whenever you are executing an action, you want to capture that action in this particular info type called actions info type. So basically you check mark these two boxes and hit enter. So your personal action is done. Your personal action is done. So my configuration is done, info group and action. So if you again visit this video from the beginning, what was info group and how I created the info group for a particular user group, and how I created an action, how I created how I assigned the info group to an action. So you have to practice using different values, but you can follow my steps. So action is good, but the most important thing here is that after the action is done, you want to see whether this action is coming in my screen or not. I still don't see that particular action, Zenith New Hire USA. Why? Because I have not basically indicated anywhere, I have not instructed the system whether that particular action, Zenith New Hire USA, is basically allowed for my user group. Are you understanding? Because who knows, I am not allowed for that particular action. That is the reason why I am not able to see that action. But if the company wants me to give permission to see that action here, then I have to basically configure the action menu. So action menu, I told you, is the list of actions. Currently how many actions are right now here? There are 2. So I want to add one more action. So this is nothing but your action menu. So let us go back here, and if you see here action menu, you are able to see action menu. Yes, here click on this clock, it will show you this screen. Click on the first activity, so this will show you here. So you don't have to do anything here because the menu 01 for actions is already created here, and it shows it is dependent on the user group dependency. That is the reason why it is not showing for me, because that particular action whatever I have created is not assigned to my user group. So once this particular is configured here, so this is already there. So menu is 01 and the actions, this actions, and it is user dependency, and similarly you have to give a reference user group. Now if I go back, now I have to define my action menu. So what is action menu? Let us see. If I click on the action menu here, it is asking me which menu. I say it's the first menu, which is nothing but the actions, the list of actions. Okay, the system says okay, hit enter. I am hitting enter. Now the system says okay, for which user group what actions you want to see in the list. Then I know my user group was 86. So now for 86, if you see, there are only 2 actions allowed, and that you are able to see here. See, Zenith hiring, Zenith new hire. But I want to include the another action which we created just now. So for that reason, I have to go and click the new entries, because right now there are 2. I want to create the third one. I'm entering my user group. Sequential number is 03. Action is ZT. I'm pressing good. Now again I'm giving the same thing for my reference user group also, ZT. This is done. Action menu is done. Perfect. Because now I'm telling my system, hey, look, for the PA40 screen, I belong to this user group 86 and I should be able to see this particular action. Then the system knows, okay, go to this PA40 screen, again log in back, go back, come with PA40 here. Just a second. Oh, I didn't save it. So you have to save it. Now you go back here to PA40. When you go to PA40, now you're able to see your third action. This is action menu. This is action menu. It's very simple because I have assigned this particular action to this particular user group and for this menu. So but this checkbox was very important because I tick mark. That is the reason why system knows, hey, these actions are only permitted for this user group which are listed here, not for all other. Similarly, there are so many other user groups, like you might be belonging to this user group called 00. I am belonging to 86. So you will be able to see all these actions. See how many actions are there for you for the user group 00. So many actions, but I cannot see because my user group was 86. So I am only seeing this many. But if I change my user group, let us go and change my user group to 00. Just for instance, I would like to show you. If you go here, parameters, change your user group from 86 to 00, hit enter and then save it. Just save your user group. Now you saved it, go back, again go to PF40. Now see, I am seeing so many actions because it was dependent on the user group. So user group number is not important, but the meaning of number system takes this very seriously because system knows this user group is allowed for this action, this user group is allowed for this info group. So that's the reason why you have to be very, very careful whenever you design a info group or a user group. So I would go here. Okay, so let me go back and go back to the own data. Okay, just a second, it is locked by me. Okay, so something I just locked it. Okay, just a second. Okay, so I'm just closing this one. System, user profile, own data, user 12. Okay, so but I mean you hope you understood what exactly I was trying to show you. So basically whenever you create a user group, that number of the user group is not important, but in the system knows what each user group is allowed to. So when you basically go and give a number here, make sure that you, when you practice yourself, make sure that you enter that number also somewhere. And you can also define your own user group. Try to practice, create your own info group and the action menus, just follow my examples and probably you will be able to basically learn a lot from my navigation, whatever I showed you. So hope this is very this was really good information for you, how to create an info group, how to define yourself for a particular user group, and how to create info group, how to create personal action, and then how to basically assign your info group to the personal actions. So you just make sure that practice yourself and definitely get familiar with these things. I mean, configuration wise it's not that much complicated. Only thing is you need to understand like what are the different configuration things you need to go and look for. So if you go to personal management, it's very straightforward. Go to personal administration and goes to customizing procedures here. Go to action. This is where you basically configure info groups, personal actions, action menu. So these are the three important things. So there are a couple of things pending, so I would like to touch those also. So when you create an action, you can create a reason for the actions. So when you create reason for the action, so my action was ZT, I would like to give a reason like ZH, I would say Zenith Hire USA. I'm just giving a reason for an action, because when you promote, when you have an action called promotion, so it's good to have create some reasons, because promotion could be different ways, like what are the different reasons for promotion. Similarly, when you terminate an employee, you could have different reasons why this employee is getting terminated, because of bad performance, or because of some other reasons he's getting terminated from the company. So those reasons can be captured here and you can save that. So now our configuration of info group and action menu is completed. Let us see what is info type menu. So when I go to PA30, I told you whenever you talk about menu, info type menu, not action menu. Action menu is PA40. When I talk about info type menu, then it is PA30. If I go to PA30, this is the tab which is allowed for my user group. So if you want to create another tab, best thing is that go to this configuration, close. You see here info type menus here. Yes, you go to the info type menu. Info type menu is basically just like how you created the info group, right? You gave some name to the info group. So you can also create a name of the tab. So for example, I'm creating a name of the tab called ZT Zenith or ZSS USA, something, the name of the tab. And this tab also I'm giving a permission only for the certain user group. So not all the users will be able to see the tabs, only particular user group. So I gave the name of the tab and I just saved it. I just made it as a user dependency and then gave some reference user group. Now I'm saving it up. Now this is the info type menu tab I have created, right? Now I am going and basically trying to list the number of info types in that particular menu. What was that menu? ZT. When I click enter, it will ask you to enter new entries. So what was my user group? 86, sequential number 1, because I am just giving the list of the info type which it should show. So if you see here, there are 4 info types under this tab. Similarly, for this particular tab, how many info types you want to see? 00, this one is the first one you want to see. 02, 001, you only want to see 2, for example, or you can have some more like 86 and give some other info types like 008, which is basic pay. Now you have defined the info type tab and the info type which it should show for this user group called 86, for 86. Now you can also give permission to another user group called 00 and also give something like only one particular info type for this user group. So I have defined the tabs ESS USA for my user group as well as for another user group, but the only difference is that for my user group I will see 3 info types under that tab, and the other user group will see only this one info type under the same tab. That is basically the user group dependency. Hope you understand, right? For my user group there are 3 info types which will show up. For another user group called 00, only this one info type will be shown. So let me save it. Now I saved it. Oh, he said there are no entries for the reference user group. Okay, I have to create reference user group also for this particular tab, because whenever you create you have to just give some reference user group for this one, and also for the 86 also. Okay, it already exists. Okay, sorry, it already exists. 99, sorry, not 86, sorry, 99. Okay, it already ticked up. Okay, that's perfectly fine. 2. Okay, so I mean I'm just giving some reference user group, but the most important was like my user group I have given 3 info types. For another user group I have just given 1 info type under this tab. So let us save it and then go back. And so now you might be wondering, hey, why I'm not seeing the tab here? Because you have basically created a tab, but you have not given the permission of this tab in the info type menu. I mean for the menu you have defined the tab which is permitted for me, and you have also defined the info types which I can see under that tab for me, for my user group, but you have not given a permission that my user group is permitted for that particular tab. No, still not in this particular menu. So the next node is determine choice of info type menus. Click on this one, click on this first one here. It will show you this screen. The first one is already there, maintain HR master data, which is nothing but your this one. Now you are telling your system like, hey, for this maintain HR master data, where is my another tab which I want to see? Then the system says, okay, fine, go back. Okay, go to the info type menus. Okay, then say, okay, what menu are you looking for? I say HR master data maintenance. It says okay, good. Now it says under the maintain HR master data, what tabs are you looking to see? So I would say go to the position number 86, which is my user group. See, it only shows here only one tab, which is Zenith new hire tab, which is basically here. Only one tab is there, but I want to see another tab. So what I have to do? I have to go and create another entry. I would say 86, and then I would say the second sequential number, and the menu is ZT. So this is another tab which it should show. Similarly, I have to give a permission for that other user group 00, because I basically assigned that particular tab for that particular user group, but I haven't assigned it to the complete menu here. So I have to give that guy also this permission. Okay, so let me see. It's okay. This is already the sequential number is already okay. I got it. This is already there. Let me see if it. Okay, that's fine. So I just gave this tab permitted to the PA30. So let me save it, and now after saving, let me go back to PA30 screen. Go back again. Go to PA30. Hit enter. Now you will see both the tabs. Let me click on my tab. I am seeing 3 info types. Why? Because I was allowed for 3 info types. Now let me go and change the user profile to 00, which is another user group, and see how many info types for that particular tab this particular user group will see. Save it. Now go to PA30. So this person already had so many tabs, he should also have ZSS tab. See, he also has ZSS tab, but he is only able to see only one info type. Why? Because of the user group dependency. So it's very interesting, you have to play around, like which user group should able to see which tabs, under the tab which user group should be able to see how many info types. See, I am also able to see ZSS USA. This user group 00 is also able to see ZSS USA. Only difference is that under this tab for me I was able to see 3 info types. For this user group he is able to see only 1 info type. And another thing is that for this user group there are so many tabs. For my user group there were only 2 tabs. So right. So if I go back to my user, so I was able to see only let me save it. Now go to P30. See, I am able to see only 2 tabs. Why? It is basically because of the user group dependency. So that user group is also having access to PA30. I am also having access to PA30. The only difference, because of the user group dependency, the access is different. I mean the permission is different. That user group is permitted for certain tabs, certain info types. My user group is permitted for certain tabs and certain info types. So this was the complete configuration of info groups, user group, info type menus, action menus, personal actions. Okay. So now you are done with the configuration. Now as a practical example, let us see how you want to run your action. Keep in mind, when I say personal action, I am telling PA40. Go to PA40. Yes. Pick up your action here. Okay. Pick up your action. I believe you might be basically remembering your previous lectures, because in the previous sessions I told you regarding the personal number ranges, what is internal number range, what is external number range. If at all, if you don't remember, I would recommend go back to that session, repeat it, and then come to this session. Otherwise you will be losing something here, because when I run these personal actions, now all those enterprise structure, personal structure, all that information will be coming up here. So if you're not familiar, or if you don't think you're perfect in that, I recommend go back, practice that, and then come back to this point. Okay. So I am selecting this action here, I am executing here, execute. Now tell me what it is doing. It is calling the info group, because for that particular action we assigned an info group, and we assigned I think nearly 6 info types in sequence. So that info types are coming one after the other. This info type number is 0000, because this is actions info type. This is info type. Don't get confused with this action and this action. This is the PA40. But when I execute this, so what it is doing, the info group which was assigned to this action is getting called. So I am executing this. This is the first info type called 0000. In my previous lecture I told you some of the fields are very mandatory, which has the tick mark here. So now I am hiring a person here. So the start date is like I am telling, okay fine, this person is hired as of 01/01/2014. Okay. So now this action type, it's coming default because I picked up this action in the previous screen, PA40. So now what is reason for action? I configured one reason for action, right? Zenith Hire USA, if you remember, I created one reason. Okay, now what is the personal area? Personal area was Zenith Chemicals, or I would say US. Now whenever you hit enter, there are some information pending. The SAP will give you a hard error. Hard error in the sense like it will be a red exclamatory mark, like it will show you that some information is missing and you have to enter something here. So my employee group if I remember is Z, and then my employee group. If you don't remember, you can definitely search by here by clicking on this icon, but I remember my employee subgroup, so I'm entering and hitting enter. The moment I hit enter, it gave me all this text. See, Zenith active, it showed me Zenith salary, because system knows about this text. This is beautifully designed by SAP. See, I entered just the number, it showed me the text also. Now look at this number 50062. If you recall, SAP has given this number because we already told the system like this has to be internal number assignment. So if you go to my previous lecture, you focus on the feature numker, which is NUMKR. In that feature, you will get a clear understanding how this number range has been defaulted. So anyways, this is the internal number. SAP has basically given a number. So my first info type has been done. So when I save this, automatically the second info type should come, which is info type 1, 0001. So this is my second info type. Good. Here it is asking to enter the sub area. When I click on this sub area, so it shows me what are the sub areas I have configured. If you remember, in the enterprise structure configuration, I showed you there were two personal sub areas which I created. So I am clicking on Zenith Chicago. This is a sub area, and the most important thing here in this screen here, when it pops up for this particular payroll area, it says the control record has not been created for payroll area, and this error will even come for you when you practice. When you practice, this error will come for you. So just focus what I'm doing to overcome this particular error. So, and the second important thing here is for the payroll area ZM. How did it came automatically? If you remember the feature ABKRS, that feature is used to default the payroll area in the info type 1. That's why, because of that feature, this payroll area is coming default. Now let us first overcome this error. To overcome this error, there is the transaction code. Only for this error, it shows control record has not been created for payroll area ZM. I will take this particular topic in a separate lecture, but just to overcome here this error here, let us follow this step. /O PA03, not PA30, PA03. What is PA03? PA03 is the transaction code to go to the control record. I press enter. So why I am entering /0? Because I don't want the current screen to be disturbed. I want to keep the current screen as well as work on another transaction. So I am hitting enter. So it will basically, just a second. Let me. Okay, so this screen will come up. When this screen comes up, so what was your payroll area? It was showing error. It was showing error for ZM, right? So it says the control record has not been created for payroll area. So control record has to be created. So when you go to the transaction PA03, it takes you to this screen. Enter the payroll area ZM and then hit enter. It will show your payroll area. Click on create and give some payroll period. This I will explain you in the payroll section, but just here I will tell you, put some value like first month of 2014 and also give the same period here. I will explain you what this particular field means in the separate lecture. Hit enter and then save. Now the control record got created, so that error should not come anymore. So if I go back to this screen, if I press, that error has gone. So this error is information. A yellow color is always information. You don't have to worry about that. Just press enter. That's it. It says save your entries. Okay, let me just go and save my entries. So before saving the entries, if you see here, this is info type 1. Info type 1 has enterprise structure, personal structure and organizational structure. If you know the position here, you can enter, but if there is no position, you can enter 9. That is the basic number which SAP has provided, because position is always created under organizational management, which is a separate HCM module. Now since we don't have that particular we didn't created any position, so I'm entering this number. Now save it. Now when I save this one, the next info type will pop up, which is nothing but info type 2. This is coming as per the info group which we defined. So let us give the last name as Adam, first name is John, and give the SSN 679899. okay, and the date of birth 0101977, and give something details. Now press enter and now save it. Keep in mind, only this info type will have the start date which is equal to the birth date. Only this info type, which is info type number 2. Now I save it. The next info type which comes up is, as per the info group, is the address info type, which is 0006. So that should pop up here. So it popped up. So it is telling you, okay, which address. So I told you these are the subtypes for the address info type. I am telling permanent address. So this is the address info type. So now I am writing something like, okay, this is address line, I would say Chicago, state is Illinois, and zip code is 60657. Now my address is done. I would save it. The next info type which comes here is so this info type is not a part of the info group, but why it came up I will take up in the next section, like why it is coming up, even though we have not basically added this info type in the list of the info group. This is a dynamic action, but this is a separate topic. I will explain you. You don't have to panic why this info type came up, because in the info group we didn't give this one. So now to skip this one, you have to click this particular icon, not this one. Don't ever try to click. This is exit. This is skip. Just I want to skip. I skipped. Fine. I just skipped it. Now the info type 7 came up. So info type 7 stores the working time. Since we have not completed the time management, so this I would like to skip this, because when I complete the time management, that time I will show you how to maintain this info type. So this info type is basically info type number 7. Now I'm going to skip this one. The next info type is info type 8, which is basic pay, and this is a part of payroll section. So once I complete the payroll, you will be able to understand. But what is the purpose I am showing here is, when I run an action, it is calling the info types one after the other depending on the info group, because info group has a sequence of that info types which we defined. And if you remember, we just defined the info group only till this info type. After this info type, I think there is no other info types we have defined. So my info group is done. So when I skip, it will take me back to the PA40 screen. See, I just came out. It just kicked me off because there is no other info type after info type basic pay. So this is the complete life cycle of how you create an info group, how you create your own user group, how you create personal action, how you assign the info group to the personal action, how you create the action menu, how you create the info type menu, and then in practically how you run an action and see whether all those info types which you have defined are coming one after the other. So hope this class was interesting, but I assume, like, for the first time it will really look very difficult. But if you practice 2 to 3 times, the best way is, like I would suggest, I've been always suggesting, like keep a notebook and try to design yourself with the different numbers or structures, and then only start configuring. If you just start configuring, you might lose somewhere in between, like, oh, what was my info group, what is my info type, what is my user group. Never just have the things lying in the air. Always put up in a paper or book. That is a habit I would always suggest to practice. Okay, so this was the end of the class. Let's see the next section, which is a new topic. Thank you. Bye.